welcome to the Red Leaf Card, your home for Canadian soccer news and views. My name is Jacob, and today we're going to be talking about some breaking news out of the Canadian Premier League, and it's from Winnipeg, Manitoba, as Valour FC has basically announced that they're suspending operations of the soccer team. And as known, a lot of fans are really upset that Valour FC is no longer going to be in the Canadian Premier League. This is the second team right now who has shut down operations in the Canadian Premier League, alongside with FC Edmonton. So a lot of fans right now seeing these teams right now folding in the Canadian Premier League, right now, and saying, could the Canadian Premier League have some problems in the future right now? As noticed, Pacific FC is already in the market of new ownership. And the question is right now, and also you look at Vancouver FC, also in there. And this is something a lot of fans out there in the Canadian Premier League looks at saying, we might look at another league in Canada absolutely folding if Canadian Soccer Business thinks of a new strategy for the Canadian Premier League. They need to think of what's wrong with these ownerships, investors in the Canadian Premier League. Why are they not doing well? As noticed, Canada is an expensive country. There's not that many investors that are really interested in the sport of soccer. I always look at it saying, look at Major League Soccer right now. It's highly invested, and you look at the three Canadian teams, Club de Foot Montreal, Toronto FC, Vancouver Whitecaps. Those are the most popular Canadian teams out there. And you look at League One Canada, you have Alberta, BC, Ontario, and Quebec. Really invested. But you look at the Canadian Premier League, what's happening to all these teams right now? York United almost folded. But you look at the Pascal brothers, they came in and showed that what they are passionate about. And now you look at saying, why you see more unfortunate events in the Canadian Premier League. Why are there teams struggling in finance? And I'll give you the reason why. There are fans who are not interested in going and say they are more interested in the American leagues. That's what we see. Canadians are more interested in abroad, like, for example, European leagues, Major League Soccer, and many more. And they don't focus on the Canadian Premier League. That's what we see. And that's the problem we have from Canadians. Say that they don't know anything about the Canadian Premier League. They're trying to look at it saying, it's not going to last. I've talked to a lot of people think that the Canadian Premier League is not going to last. Some people say it's good for Canada soccer, but again, they don't see that future for Canada soccer, for the Canadian Premier League lasting. Maybe they're wrong, maybe they're right about what the future is going to be like. But again, seeing Valour FC folding, shutting down operations of their team alongside with FC Edmonton, and now you look at saying you have FC Supra coming in. And again, this whole issue saying we're going to make more teams in the Canadian Premier League, but you can't have more than 9 teams in the Canadian Premier League. What is wrong with the organization of Canadian soccer business? I question, is the investors that are not interested? Is, again, I always say about Canadian soccer business, is it your whole max of teams, 8 teams, or you're allowing teams to come in to take over some of the teams that are struggling? You look at Pacific FC. They're already trying to find a new owner. And this is something, you look at the Canadian Premier League. A lot of fans that love the Canadian Premier League always question what's next. And a lot of people always say that the Northern Super League is doing really well. You look at how other leagues are doing of their system, negotiating with deals, other things. They're doing well. I really think that Canadian soccer business needs to think better. And right now, how their structure is not doing well. So at this point, we've seen the owners making their statements. Their fan base of Valour FC still hating on the ownership of what they are. And again, I don't like how fans are turning on their ownership of what they are. But again, you are also there to make the ownership to make profit. A lot of ownership always say that teams need to make a profit to know that the team and the league is successful. Right now, you look at, again, Pacific FC, Vancouver FC, York United. They're not doing well. And you see Valour FC. They weren't even making a profit. Even FC Edmonton. Because they didn't even make fans. They look at it saying, nah, it's not really a professional league. It's a barn league. And that's the problem. You look at Toronto that are making fun of the Canadian Premier League. Not just Toronto. You look at other teams out there that support Canadian Major League Soccer teams that even make fun of the Canadian Premier League. It's not really professional league. It's a barn league. Make some other stuff up. And again, we've seen the Canadian Premier League finals. I guess some of the fans woken up about that famous goal from David Rodriguez. But again, did that famous goal from David Rodriguez change things around? Probably so. But what happened to Valour FC showed that the Canadian Premier League didn't do well. And we look at it also, for example, a lot of teams out there, I know a lot of fans out there always say relocation is a bad idea. I would have to say relocations should be something like a situation. If you can't make a profit out of somewhere, you have to. And there's always something that, like I would say, for example, Pacific FC, where they are, probably somewhere that you have to relocate them. It's not a great place. And you look at the ownership, it's terrible. They've not even paid of practice facilities, all these maintenance stuff. It's like almost like $1 million that they have to pay. If there's going to be a new ownership for Pacific FC, and the new owner finds out the new things that you have to pay from previously, he would basically not want the team. So we might see another team folding if we don't get a new ownership for Pacific FC. I don't know if there might be that warning with Vancouver FC or York United, for example. That's one other things could go wrong. But we have other owners out there. You look at Halifax Wanderers, you look at Atletico Ottawa, Forge FC, Calgary FC, really successful owners out there. And you look at those other ones. I don't know if FC Supra could be right now a good ownership, but we have to wait for the upcoming season of 2026 of how they go. So if we see how 2026 season goes and the unfortunate events goes for 2026 in the Canadian Premier League, we might see some negatives or some positives. But we have to see if there's going to be announcements of probably expansion teams, which we might want to see coming in, but we do not want to see in the Canadian Premier League that there's going to be announcement of a team that's folding for the Canadian Premier League. But the positives that we see in Canada soccer is that the Vancouver Whitecaps defeated LAFC. Redemption from it. As noticed that there was some back and forths, but a lot of people thought that Vancouver Whitecaps would win it in the 90th minute. In the first half, 2-0. And then later, in the 60th minute, LAFC responded with their first goal. And then later you look at the added minutes in the 90th minute. LAFC gets a free kick. Son makes that free kick. And I would have to say that was a good free kick there to get a goal, to tie the game. But then later you figure out extra time. LAFC has the advantage because one of the Vancouver Whitecaps gets a red card and they're down one man. And LAFC had so many chances to score. They hit the goalpost, they hit the crossbar. Then later, they go to PKs. Son from LAFC hits the goalpost in PKs, and Vancouver Whitecaps score of the first round of the penalty kicks. So Vancouver Whitecaps gets the advantage. And again, you look at Vancouver Whitecaps continuing on all the way to the fifth round. Vancouver Whitecaps almost had the chance to actually lose and to continue it on of the penalty kicks if they didn't score. But I have to say this. Vancouver Whitecaps showed they didn't want to lose this one in penalty kicks. They wanted to win this to go to the conference finals. Now they're 2 wins away to winning the MLS Cup. And we might see a second Canadian Major League Soccer team winning the MLS Cup. But we'll see how Vancouver stands out in the conference finals in Major League Soccer. And that's full time of the Red Leaf Card. You could follow us on X, Spotify, and YouTube. I'm your host, Jacob, subbing out.